Time travel, Anne said. She caught Lethbridge-Stewart's eye as he glanced up at her. I'm sorry, Colonel, but it's the only thing that makes any sense of this. How else does an ancestor of mine know me so precisely? Where else did the UFO go? And it's all connected to this machine. Archibald said there was a missing piece, and that the piece would find its way to me.
I don't see how. We're pretty much off the beaten track here. Unless Mr. Hegarty has it.
What about all this bothers you so, Colonel? The idea of ghosts or time travel?
Both are absurd.
Really? After everything we have seen? I seem to recall how readily you accepted the idea in the London Underground when the hobo presented you with a way out. Now that Lethbridge-Stewart had promised to read in Jim later, she figured using the code name would be permissible.
Born of necessity, Miss Travers. The hobo had a craft that could help save my men. And with everything else that was going on, I saw no reason to disbelieve him. But I have had time to think since, and I have seen nothing that convinces me that travel in time is real, let alone the idea that such a thing can be achieved with a police box.
Anne shook her head, but she supposed she could not really blame the Colonel. She too had spent a long time disbelieving the idea of time travel. It wasn't until London, and then the discoveries made in Wiltshire last month, that she'd finally started to accept it, and she at least had her father's stories to prepare her. The Colonel had no such thing. Lethbridge-Stewart stood up and held the book out.
Perhaps you should look through this, Miss Travers. See if it helps. Aliens I can deal with. Something tangible. But ghosts? It's absurd.
But you saw the footage, Jim pointed out.
Yes, and I can't explain it. But I trust Miss Travers can. With a rational explanation instead of science fiction. Even if I accept the idea of time travel, which I don't. Be assured that you are here under my protection, and as such you will not be dying on my watch. Now, what's keeping those lads with the tea?
Colonel Lethbridge-Stewart left the room and descended the steps outside. Stubborn old goat, Anne said behind his back, and turned back to Jim with a smile. Sorry about that, but I just don't understand why he's so against the idea, especially after... She stopped herself, reminding herself that some secrets had to be kept. Jim took the book off her and sat down on the sofa. He began flicking through it. Okay, I can see how ghosts can bother him. After all, I'm not so copacetic about all this either. But I don't understand why you're so sure about time travel. Experience, Jim. You see, before I was born, my father was an anthropologist. He was particularly fond of the myth about the abominable snowmen. And in 1935, he funded a trip to Tibet to find proof of their existence. Which he did, eventually, but not before encountering robotic Yeti in the Himalayas. Robots? In Tibet? I know it sounds unlikely, but they were created as guards to protect a disembodied life form called the Great Intelligence. It possessed the Lama Padmasambhava and took over the monastery at Detsen. Why? Anne smiled warmly. The less you know, the better. But the point is, in Tibet my father met a mysterious traveller, a rather brilliant scientist who helped him defeat this Great Intelligence. This man claimed to be a time traveller. This hobo person who assisted the army in London. Yes. Anyway, all my life my father would tell me stories of this hobo and his two friends. But as I grew and became a scientist, I'm afraid I've become a bit more rational about such things. The idea of time travel was ludicrous to me, and I never came across any evidence to prove its existence. So what changed? Meeting the hobo and his friends in the London Underground. They were exactly how my father described them. Exactly! For them, only a couple of months had passed, but for my father, nearly 35 years.